Hey guys, Pixar is a great animation studio, like Disney. They have delivered masterpiece classic after masterpiece classic. But like any studio, they're not completely perfect. They have made movies that missed the mark and failed to live up to their potential, or just be good in general. So today let's talk about the top 5 worst Pixar movies of all time. If you like these movies, I respect your opinion. Number 5. Cars 2. Yeah, no worst Pixar list would be complete without this film. Now, despite the fact I have a soft spot for this film and it isn't terrible, it is a bad movie. Its story is confusing and all over the place. The tone shift is jarring. Going from a racing movie to a spy movie is incredibly baffling. The characters are one note in this film, especially Mater, and the villain's motivations are unclear and clunky. There are positives to this movie though. The animation is always as colorful and fluent, and the action scenes are all exhilarating and a lot of fun. This is not a top 3 worst animated movies, and certainly not as bad as most of Disney's sequels, but it is still a poorly put together movie that sticks out sorely. Number 4. The Good Dinosaur. This film started off with an interesting premise, but after director after director, story rewrite after story rewrite, we just ended up with a cluttered mess that didn't have anything new to show. This is every other animated adventure movie you've seen. The world building is also very confusing and bland and doesn't do a good job with establishing how this modern dino world works. They're basically the humans and the humans are the animals, but they don't ever explain how. They don't show this world evolved. They just present these cookie-cutter characters and ideas and don't add anything new or interesting. They are generic forgettable characters in a generic forgettable movie and is one of Pixar's biggest disasters. Number 3. Incredibles 2. This film let down the original so badly. The first film is among Pixar's best, with its unique story, memorable characters and great villain. This sequel is just the first film again without all of its charm and personality. Yes, the animation is still great, and the action scenes are fun to watch. But everything else the first film did great, this movie did poorly. The characters are now all unlikable, especially Bob. The tracks are just inferior versions of the original's spectacular soundtrack, and the villain is such a downgrade from Syndrome. Her motivations are not thought out, and her reasoning and overall plan is completely messy and confusing. She is very close to being the worst villain Pixar came up with, if not for another. Don't worry, we'll get to it soon. We waited 14 years for a sequel to The Incredibles and this is what we got? Just a boring, frustrating, lame rehash of its predecessor? What a sick joke. They really should have just gone with the Underminer as the main villain. Hopefully Incredibles 3 is better, but this movie is anything but incredible. Number 2. Brave. This movie is a weird case. It was the first princess-centric film for Pixar, and so far their only one, and I can see why. This movie is horrendously bad. The characters are all agonizingly aggravating. The story is cliché and predictable, and the stuff that is interesting is hardly focused on or developed in any way. This film tries so hard to tell a story we haven't seen before and thinks it's doing something different and groundbreaking, but it's not. It's doing the exact same thing as all the other movies of its kind, with nothing to really make it stand out. Its twist of who the bad guy actually is unimpactful, since we can see it coming a mile away and we can predict everything that's going to happen. This movie is so dull and bland and uninteresting that it leaves no impact on me after I watch it. This is a film I wanted to like. The trailers made it seem like this was going to be a different, intriguing Pixar movie, but instead we got the most generic, boring stock movie Pixar could have made, and I can easily see why it was forgotten so quickly after it came out. Before I get to number 1, I have a few honorable mentions. Onward, I almost put it on the list. The movie throughout was just a stale adventure film, but then around the last 30 minutes of the film when they fight the stone dragon, and a few emotional scenes happen, it made me warm up to this movie. It's still pretty bland, but I gave it a pass. Cars 3. Again, I almost included it, but at least this feels like an actual extension of the first Cars and isn't a completely different racetrack. It followed up the themes of the original fine and had some endearing moments. It is rushed and is not as emotionally powerful like Toy Story or Up, but it's not horrible. Elio, what an okay movie with some touching moments and cool alien stuff. Monsters University. I still wish we got a sequel instead of a prequel, but it is definitely not a travesty to the original like Incredibles 2 was, and for that, I give it a pass. And the number 1 worst Pixar movie is Lightyear. This movie is such a disappointing pile of rubbish. taking a character that is iconic and full of potential as Buzz Lightyear, and turning him into the most soulless protagonist in animation history. All the creative freedom you had with this character, and you place him in the most lifeless, boring planet with the most stock generic creatures you could possibly come up with the most boring cookie-cutter side characters you could imagine. And not even Taika could make this movie more entertaining. This movie is basically about Buzz moping around for the whole runtime about how he stranded people on this lame planet, and he spends the entire movie trying to get them home. Even though they like life on this planet, it's not about Buzz fighting aliens and evil emperors for the good of the galaxy and the Galactic Alliance. It's about him finding a fuel that can get them back to their home planet. What a lousy script. You could have literally done anything. You could have given us the most bizarre zany space environments you could possibly imagine. Give us William Joyce-inspired buildings and robots and weapons and spaceships. Go full out with your creativity. But instead, we got the most uncreative stock story with the most stock characters and stock world you could possibly set it on. And the biggest crime this movie committed, they completely botched Zurg. Remember how in Toy Story 2, Zurg was actually well developed and revealed as Buzz's father? Well, in this film they ripped off the villain of the Lego Movie 2 and made Zurg a future variant of Buzz. What the fuck? This is the most unimaginative lazy reveal you could have gone with. Also, the time variant doesn't explain how he came to be. He just says he traveled far into the future and found this ship and stole it, and thus where we are currently. But we've been seeing this Buzz for the whole narrative. How did this Buzz come to be? He can't be a Buzz from an alternate timeline, because they never established that in this movie, and his motivations are not that of a conquering evil emperor who wants to rule the galaxy. He has the same motives as our hero, which is to finish the mission and bring everybody home. And he comes up with the brilliant idea of using the crystals to go back in time instead of forward. Frustrating solution narrations aside, this villain falls flatter than a pancake, because his motives are not only uninteresting and not villainous in the slightest, but he is no longer really a villain. He's just a more unhinged version of the hero. The film tries to go for a message of obsessive completion and how sometimes good things happen from your mistakes and you should just accept your reality instead of trying to change it. But what are really the stakes and consequences of the villain succeeding? The timeline where they got stranded ceases to exist and therefore everything that followed never happened, and while that is awful to the extent of characters being erased from existence, there isn't any real danger to erasing the timeline. Besides the few things, it's completely inconsequential, so we don't really feel the gravitas of the stakes, since there really isn't any. If they established that messing with the timeline causes an incursion or unraveling of space and time, that would be one thing, but it doesn't. All that would happen is, they just go home successfully and they never stay on the planet. That's it. Insulting bastardization of what had every right to be a fantastic villain. Screenslaver was at least a one-off forgettable character. But Zurg is literally one of the biggest antagonists of the Toy Story franchise. He's essentially Pixar's equivalent to Darth Vader. You had every opportunity to make him a peak Pixar villain and you soiled it. This film showcases everything that Pixar is not: uncreative, unimaginative, and unengaging, dull, bland, boring, forgettable, and a complete waste of potential and time. Lightyear is easily the absolute worst Pixar film of all time. Anyways guys, what do you think? Let me know down in the comments, and I'll see you guys later.